So after the BPD video, I did have a few messages, sort of support, and I'm glad that people are taking some positivity out of it. That was entirely my intent, and I'm glad. If it's helped you, then that's great. If it's perhaps giving you an insight into something else that you didn't know existed, even better. But in these discussions, we have sort of looked at for sort of further ideas. Particularly with one individual, sort of looked at some more of the personal experiences, which does count for a lot. And I'm sort of happy to share some of that information with you. Again, see if it helps. If you haven't already seen the first BPD video, by the way, there's an annotation there. Click it, it'll take you to it in a new window, and I'll be waiting. So, obviously, I did touch on it very briefly and not in massive detail. I'm not here for a diagnostic means or really to sort of give too much sort of personal information, obviously, because everyone's different. It's one of those things that is as much down to personal experience as it is, sort of a recognisable format. But one of the big sort of things that was discussed was about sort of growing up particularly, and was it sort of perhaps just a perception of being perhaps antisocial or moody. A lot of my sort of issues did seem to arise quite early on in life. Sort of like, I definitely remember the age of 5 having quite a large scale temper tantrum, which it shows indications. I'm not saying that we should probably be diagnosing children of that sort of age with anything because their brains are still developing. I'm definitely against sort of diagnosing anything too early, particularly when it comes to mental health, obviously, because, as I say, it can be developmental and things like that, so it's always very tricky. But from the sort of antisocial point of view, really that was probably more my family who thought that I was perhaps more antisocial than particularly my sister, who was very much a social butterfly. And I was always a lot happier just being in my own mind, if you will, being in my own world, almost kind of having control over my own space, which perhaps was a sensible idea considering how I was sort of coming to expect, and sort of experience was telling me that people tended to get me annoyed and I didn't react very well. So I was probably, as I say, perceived in some circles as I say, antisocial, whereas it was more perhaps I was rationing that out a lot more. I would consider myself on the introverted scale, going back to a video that I've done on that, on the introvert and extrovert kind of sides. I definitely count myself more content in my own space. It's quite draining in social environments. Maybe that's as much as anything because I'm always mindful of keeping us in control as possible, so that bad things don't happen. Moody, I wouldn't really say, perhaps was a label that was applied, mainly because having been born male-sexed, it's not a term that tends to be thrown into that. It's unfortunately, for right or wrong, often a female-centric trait, if you will. So, not really one that was levelled at me. Another question that did come up as well is, is there some kind of comfort that's been found, if you will, in knowing that there are others out there? I think more my comfort came from knowing there was a name, if you will. There was, not that I'm jumping out and grabbing labels left, right and centre, but when you've got a name for it, you know how to deal with it. And also, yes, you can find other people who are in similar situations. Maybe not exactly the same, because everyone's life experiences are going to differ. But knowing there are people who are experiencing similar difficulties is sometimes enough. And it was definitely worthwhile for me when I found, that there are others out there. I do go to sort of a group who aren't focused perhaps on support as much as anything, although just by its existence it's kind of supportive, but more about sort of challenging, the various organisations that are involved in mental health, and looking at helping them improve, and also perhaps coming up with ideas that can help people in general, and that's all sort of personality disorders that caters to. So that's good, that's always a positive. And like I say, having people who are, I suppose, like-minded in the sense that they have similar mindsets because of whatever they have, on the personality disorder spectrum. And a lot of times there are coexisting conditions which, sort of are mirrored again across various different forms of personality disorder. There are a number of situations where whatever the personality disorder is, there's feelings of anxiety and perhaps depression with it. So it tends to kind of often hold those, if you will, and drag them along into the depths, if you will. So it's very positive knowing there are people out there, and like I say, sort of the support I've had sort of following the first video, and people kind of going, yeah, this is good, it's helpful to know that there are people, sort of who are willing to, if you like, say, yes, I have this, and really sort of be that bridge, if you will, that some people don't have. Some people don't know where the support networks are. And I definitely think that, anything that anyone can do to help with access, or even creation, of these supports, then that's brilliant. I will probably do a few more of these. I think that's going to be it for now. I don't want to sort of go on too long, but I think that's going to be it for now. But yes, I will be definitely coming back, perhaps over time, and tackling more ideas. If anyone's got any suggestions, of things that they perhaps experienced themselves, if they want to share them anonymously or not, it's entirely up to you. Then feel free to get in touch, and if you just need an ear to bend, I'm happy to provide that as well. So all that's left to say is, until next time, take care.